Hello, folks, and welcome back to Open Source Tonight. Folks, today what I wanted to talk to you all about is the Blender open source animation system, the animation tool. So let's go take a look. So this right here is the open source software I'm speaking about. It's called Blender, and it's pretty powerful stuff. So I've got some different objects here, different models. So I've got right here a model of a pencil. That's what that is right there, is a model of a pencil. I have a light. This is a spotlight. I have some planes, which are used as they're used as basically like a background to set. I have the camera, which if we zoom out far enough, this right here is the camera. So I can turn that on or off. And I don't claim to be an expert at Blender. I just like to play with it. And yeah, I mean, you know, again, my skill set is not exactly advanced here. So let's go ahead and I'll show you some of the things you can do. Again, this is really simple stuff. Like I said, we have a camera. We can change the focal length over here of the lens. Again, this is video production stuff. You know, not everybody might be interested. We can do, one of my favorite things to do is actually to do animation. So we can come in here and I'll show you the basics of that, like with the camera. So we're at 24 frames per second. So I'm going to set my Y-axis with this little button up here to be a keyframe. And that's what you do, is you go between keyframes for animation. And then we'll go up to 120 frames. That's 5 seconds. And I'm just going to slowly move across the frame here. Then I'm going to select that again. And just like that, if we go back and forth, and I go back to the beginning and I hit play, you can see it slowly crawls across the screen. And right now, it's going to come to a stop. There it is, see? So that allows you to do some basic animation. And if I actually turn the shading back on over here, you can kind of see what it looks like if we let it render a little bit. So I will actually show you the full rendering experience here. So you can see all that noise and stuff there. If I zoom in, hopefully YouTube will not get rid of it. But you can see that it's slowly getting rid of more and more of that in the render. And when it gets to the last sample, I'm doing 128, which is probably more than I need to do for this simple scene, but that's what I'm doing anyway. But when we get to the end of this, it will actually denoise, so we'll come back to that when it's done. But you can see down here it also shows you the rendering time, and I can, like I said, build stuff. Once this is done rendering, I'll come back and I'll show you the final product. Actually, it looks like it's almost done anyway. We'll just stick around. And there it is. You can see that it's not noisy anymore. If I zoom in here in these same places, now of course there's pixels, but that's okay. I rendered this at 2K resolution, which is just slightly higher quality as far as resolution goes than Broadcast HD, which this was rendered at exactly 2048 by 1080 pixels. But anyway, that's what we have here. And it doesn't look bad. I mean, like I said, we got shadows, you know, we've got reflections off of things here like a shine. So again, I don't claim to be an expert at this, but you can do some pretty cool stuff. So another thing we can talk about is how you can shade the objects and stuff. So I'll come in here and I split this object into multiple pieces. So for example, the yellow right over here, that shades obviously the middle here. Up here, this shades the eraser part, you know, with this like brownish red. And then down here we have this little gray looking color that is for the tip of the pencil. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I will open a new project and show you a little bit about how it works, the basics. So here's the basics. We, like I said, have our canvas here. I think that's what they call this from what I remember. And we can come in here and I can change all kinds of things. So for example, I can press the X key after I select an object like that with my mouse and delete it. You can do Shift A to get this menu to come up, but a lot of this stuff these days you can also come up here and do the same thing. So I'll get an icosphere, for example, and I find the keyboard shortcuts are honestly really helpful. So like, for example, I can do G to move it. I can do Control Z to go back like you can with most things. I can do the S key to scale, so we'll make a bigger one, and you can see we've done that. So we have some options here. We can control how it's shaded. Right, we have some options, right? Like I said, we could move it over here with these as well if you prefer. I generally don't like to do it that way. However, it's great for animation purposes. So we already talked about this before. We can do keyframes with these little icons over here, and I can actually animate any property I want of an object here, of a model. So I could animate lights, a camera moving, you know, objects, whatever that I want. So That's pretty cool. And I can come into the shaded view, but it looks mostly the same. So, but again, I could come in here and I could actually say, let's add a new material and let's actually start shading this a little bit. And we'll come in here. See, doesn't that look kind of cool? It's a lot better. Now, if we go unshaded, shaded. And if we actually render this, it looks like this. You can see we actually have the shadows as I move around. It's pretty cool. You know, this isn't like a full tutorial on Blender. It's just to show you like what it can do, but we can switch different rendering engines. And now we've rendered there with the Cycle engine instead of Eevee. Eevee renders super fast, and it looks pretty good too. Cycles is, I think, a little better quality, but not by that much. So, you know, you have options. Anyway, so I can come in here and I can change all these different things, right? If I hit the tab key, again, it's just easier to do this with a lot of the keys, but you can do a lot of this stuff up here, like this edit mode. I can come up here and select, but I can actually select like the different vertices and select faces. And so I could use like the E key to extrude, and now we have that. I don't know really. Maybe this is like some weird sign or something. I don't know. Not really sure what it is, but I could like use like control and select a couple of these vertices and do this on the other side. And so now we have like some, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but we have it. Right? We have it. And so, yeah, that's, you know, we can do that. And, you know, I could go like the G key and then go up. And so I can do G and then Z, and it will let me move it on the Z axis. And there we go. Right? So again, it's very simple. I'm not like, again, really good at this kind of stuff per se. I always want to hit Control S there and save. But you can do a bunch of stuff. Another thing you can do, let me go into cycles because I don't know how it works in Eevee, is you can actually handle, one of the things you can do that's pretty cool, you can actually handle depth of field where you can have a blurry background. That being said, I don't know where the setting went. Maybe I'm on the wrong screen. I forget. Anyway, but there is a way to do that where you can actually have the background be blurry like you would see. Like on a movie, for example, you often see certain shots where the background is blurry. And that's called shallow depth of field. But anyway, you know, it's pretty simple. You know, I have got it set up here to take advantage of my 1050 Ti and my Ryzen 3700X. Both of them. And it works. But anyway, you know, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, if you want to check it out, please do. Folks, if you do want to check it out, please do. There's a lot of really cool stuff that I didn't touch on. I'm not an expert in Blender, but I do think it's really interesting. It's open source software. It's completely free. If you're remotely interested in like 3D, CGI, computer generated imagery, you know, the same stuff like Pixar does, for example, you might want to give this a try. I have to say, for me, being a film nerd, I really found it very interesting the first time I played with Blender years ago. It's been a while, but I do enjoy it. So let me know in the comments, folks, what you think about Blender, and thanks for watching. Goodbye, everybody. And action.